what makes boxing a science? Well, first let's define science. Now, the definition for science is the intellectual and practical activity encompassing the systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation and experimentation.
Boxing. Why is such a brutal but loved sport called the sweet science? To a casual or new fan, it just looks like two people beating each other up, aimlessly punching each other in the head and body. But the more you watch, study, and gain an understanding of and love for the sport, the more you can see the precise scientific calculations behind every move a skilled boxer makes. So let's see why boxing is called the sweet science.
Boxing is, you have to study your opponent. Like, for instance, when you enter a boxing match, the first thing is you need to find out what style are they using. Are they outboxing, boxer puncher, a slugger? You know, you have to find out if they first doing that. Are they in the 3 zone, the 2 zone, the 4 zone? What zone is they fighting out of? What is their weapons? And you have to figure all of that out as fast as possible so you could take away their weapons and capitalize on their flaws. So you need to figure out their weapon and figure out their flaws, figure out their stance, figure out their foot position, and all of that you need to really find out to win the match. So that's why boxing become a science, because you have to study these people intellectually to find out where their mind state is at, and physically.
Well, in the 17th and 18th centuries, as the sport became more modernized, strategies became more important, techniques formalized, and the rules left little space for freestyle fighting, which caused the boxers to get more strategical in their approach. In 1813, the idiom "sweet science for boxing" was conceived by British sports writer Pierce Egan. While writing articles on the sport of pugilism, Pierce Egan realized the sophistication boxers used in developing a game plan to win their match, and finding a balance between taking and giving punishment. They have to strategize how to defeat their opponents before even stepping into the ring with them. They have to be very scientific in there. Sports writer and boxing enthusiast Dimitar Ivanov delved deeper into why boxing is called the sweet science. It is called the sweet science because it requires the fighters to be fierce, tactical, and have a certain amount of anticipation for their opponent's next move. It takes logic and science to be able to create an environment where it is all possible. The fighters use the sweet science of boxing to take them down and ultimately win. Even former undisputed heavyweight champion and boxing legend Lennox Lewis and former WBC heavyweight champion Vitaly Klitschko once compared boxing to the strategic game of chess.
Now, with that being said, is boxing is more of a mental sport, because you have to get in their mind in some type of way. You have to either make them discouraged to throw a punch, you have to get them questioning themselves.
Before Pierce Egan coined the phrase sweet science, British boxer Daniel Mendoza introduced the idea that boxing had a scientific and methodological approach in the late 1700s. Daniel Mendoza created a new style of fighting at that time, where he took a more defensive approach by using sidestepping and ducking to defeat many of his opponents. Before Mendoza became a boxer, the sport was a deadlier sport to participate in. Boxers did not use slick head and body movement to avoid being hit. They did not time their punches, and they depended on their toughness and throwing the hardest punches. As a boxer, being only 5'7" and 160 pounds, Mendoza amassed a 37-3 record with 34 wins by knockout, and he was also able to capture the British Heavyweight Championship being only 160 pounds. Therefore, after becoming the British Heavyweight Champion being only 5'7", 160 pounds, he showed that the scientific method or approach to boxing can lead to winning matches. This single-handedly created the methodical, tactical, and scientific boxers throughout history till this very day. Daniel Mendoza opened his own boxing school in 1789, wrote a book called The Art of Boxing, which teaches his scientific method of boxing. The term sweet science became affixed to the sport of boxing in the modern lexicon by A.J. Liebling, a writer for The New Yorker. His book, The Sweet Science, published in 1956, chronicled the most significant moments in modern boxing, which in 2002, Sports Illustrated placed the book at #1 on their list of greatest sports books of all time, giving the term sweet science an iconic status.
Now, when you're training, you know, you go through different repetitions and different drills and things like that, and you have to learn different styles so you could be able to utilize these tools in fighting. For instance, like if we was training, we might train with a swarmer, and for those who don't know what a swarmer is, that's more like a Mike Tyson style of fighting. A swarmer, but he was also an aggressive counterpuncher. So we would go in with someone like that, and of course, the style to counteract the swarmer is to outbox them, to be fast on your feet, turning angles, keep them twisting and turning. Something similar to Floyd Mayweather and Marcus Madonna too. How he kept them twisting and turning and things like that. And that's how you really fight a swarmer. But most people don't understand the different styles of boxing. They don't understand that training is more of a mental thing and of course a physical thing. But you have to learn these different styles of boxing and understand them and understand the counter versions of certain styles to be able to implement them in the ring. So the science of boxing, when you go and you train and things like that, you train to counter certain styles and utilize certain weapons that you have to diffuse or neutralize the opponent's weapon. So when you go into a ring, besides the fact, you know how scientists sometimes study, you know, they do different experiments, see what works. That's how it is in sparring. When you spar, you do the things that you train to do to see if they work. And if they don't work, you go back to training and you come back to the drawing board and you use this style and things like that, something like a scientist. And then when you go in the ring, you use what you learned to benefit yourself.
The best fighters are sweet scientists. They use a form of tactical planning by studying the opponent and training their bodies to respond. You have to have exceptional movement, balance, coordination, distance management, and reflexes. Balance is very important because if a fighter can't balance their skills, they will have many unsuccessful matches. Meaning, if you can't hit your opponent or can't defend yourself from an opponent effectively, you will lose. The main goal of the top or best boxer is to combine all their training, knowledge, and experience to become a fighter that can hit but not be hit. This takes time, patience, and basic research to determine what works or not for each fighter. The way a boxer bobs, feints, use their footwork, their defense, their style, and their approach to each specific fight all combine to create a scientific method, the sweet science of boxing, the art of hitting and not being hit.
And that's why boxing is a science, because it's the study of the intellectual and the physical properties. You know, it all starts in the mind. You have to be able to see these things and understand these things mentally. So when your opponent coming to you, you know exactly what style they're using, exactly what zone they're in, exactly what weapons they have, and you can defuse them and win. Once again, it's Coach Floyd from Team Us LLC. Thank you for tuning in, and that's why boxing is a science to me. This is my opinion. Once again, thank you for tuning in.
Sweet Science Sports.
It's the sweet one.
Ding ding, motherfuckers.